Julie Andrews is iconic in the Sound of Music movie, but the film left out one of the darkest details about the real Maria Von Trapp, which will definitely surprise you. Maria Von Trapp was a nun, a singer, a mother, and a refugee, and the inspiration for the Sound of Music movie. The life of Von Trapp was heroic, shocking, tragic, and almost unbelievable. This is truly a case where life is stranger than fiction. From an early age, Von Trapp must have felt that her life was unusually unlucky. She lost her mother to pneumonia when she was 2. Then in 1912, her father passed on. Maria was then passed into the care of a man known as Uncle Franz. Unfortunately, Uncle Franz was not the perfect guardian. At times, Franz was a thoughtful man and cared intensely about social inequality. However, he also had a terrifying dark side. He suffered from mental illnesses and treated Maria rather cruelly. Oftentimes, he would punish her for acts that she had not actually committed. At 15 years old, shortly after graduating from high school, Maria ran away from home. She stayed with a friend and tried unsuccessfully to find work as a tutor. Eventually, Maria managed to secure a job and began to save money. She used it to pay for teachers' college, however. Her teaching career was short. Maria decided that a big change was in order. After graduating from teachers' college in 1923, Von Trapp moved into a convent and began to live the life of a nun. In 1926, Maria received orders to go to Baron Georg von Trapp's house. She worked as a governess. Though she was hired to tutor one of his 7 children, she eventually began to take care of all of them. Despite what the movie depicts, Maria Von Trapp did not actually teach the children to sing. Instead, the 7 Von Trapp kids grew up in a musical household. The Baron did not have anything against the children singing. In fact, Georg encouraged and loved music. Later, the band did receive training from a classical singing teacher and priest, who came to live with them, but not from their governess. Not long after she came to his house, Baron Von Trapp shocked Maria right to her core. To her complete surprise, he proposed to her. Von Trapp was 25 years older than Maria. She was confused and scared, and she ran back to the convent. After a crisis of faith and a little prompting from her convent, the nun-to-be chose to marry the Baron. However, there was a minor catch in this unusual love story. Maria Von Trapp has said that she did not initially love the Baron. She did, however, love his children deeply. Effectively, she married into the Von Trapp family so that she could be a mother to the children. Her love for her husband developed as years passed. Once it did, she said that it grew into a true and all-encompassing love. Even though Maria was not taken by her groove in the beginning, the former nun's new husband was quite a catch. Von Trapp was a decorated submarine captain and a national hero. He was an officer in the Imperial and Royal Austro-Hungarian Navy and received a number of awards and medals for his service. In fact, he was actually knighted and also received the highest military honor in the nation. The Baron was also quite wealthy, but most of the Baron's money actually came from an inheritance from his first wife. Before he was married to Maria, Georg was married to a woman who contracted scarlet fever and did not survive. Prior to this tragic event, his wife collected a very sizable inheritance. Before their singing careers, the Von Trapps lived off of this money. There is a tragic link between Maria and her husband's first wife. On a family hike, the Von Trapps took a much-needed rest at a farmer's house, but there was a dark twist to the innocent encounter. What they didn't know was that the farmer's family had scarlet fever. Maria and 2 of the children contracted the deadly illness. The children recovered, but Maria was left with serious complications and lifelong kidney problems. Despite the Baron being a rich and famous man, when Maria met him, the family soon fell on hard times, like much of the world during the 1930s. The whole country was in crisis. Due to financial hardship, the family dismissed the many servants that kept the Von Trapp estate running. the family moved into the top floor of their house and rented out the rest. In 1938, the Germans annexed Austria. Like the rest of the country, the Von Trapps were forced to live under authoritarian rule. Georg von Trapp was offered a respectable position in the Navy, which was tempting because of their financial situation. However, he was ideologically opposed to the government and refused. This put the family in a very precarious situation. Life under German rule was not easy. Though the Von Trapps were not an oppressed family, the children found themselves in an increasingly hostile school environment. They regularly witnessed serious acts of hatred toward Jewish classmates. Austria was becoming a very dangerous place. One day, the famous soprano, Lotte Lehmann, heard the Von Trapp family singing. She invited them to take part in a music festival. The family ended up winning a big prize. They decided to try their luck on the circuit and began to perform as a group at concerts. They were highly successful. As a result, the Austrian chancellor invited them to perform in Vienna. The Von Trapps were becoming quite famous in Austria. Soon, they would make their way to Germany. In 1938, the family took a trip to Munich. Von Trapp and her family happened upon the Führer in a restaurant. Apparently, they came across the leader of the Third Reich at the dinner table. Little is known about this meeting. However, given the family's position on the Führer, it can be assumed that it wasn't a particularly pleasant experience for them. Soon after, the struggling family choir received a really big invitation, but there was a disturbing dark side to it. The invitation was not one that they had hoped for. Adolf Hitler invited the Von Trapps to perform for him personally. Unsurprisingly, the family refused the problematic invitation. It is likely that this refusal became one of the major driving forces behind their next life-altering move. The mid-1930s were not a good time for anyone in Austria. In the end, the Von Trapp family decided to flee their home country. It wasn't like the movie depiction, however, and the family did not escape in the dead of the night after a concert. Instead, they simply took a train to Italy, much less dramatic, but still incredibly brave. After the family left, the Von Trapp estate in Austria took on a new sinister purpose. Instead of housing a wholesome family choir, the estate became the new headquarters for Heinrich Himmler, one of the highest-ranked members of the Nazi Party. It even had a special room designed to host the Führer when he visited Austria. Though the Von Trapps traveled Europe for a while, their plan was always to cross the pond. The family already had a job lined up in America when they left Austria. They set sail in 1939. Like many newcomers, the Von Trapp family had difficulty with the customs and language in their new home. Though they eventually achieved huge success, the family entered the country as refugees, and their first few years were difficult. Still, it was a small price to pay for their safety and the ability to dodge invitations from authoritarian rulers. In America, the Von Trapp family began touring under the name the Trapp Family Singers. The group was an instant success throughout the U.S. and Canada. Though they made little money, they toured constantly and had no trouble finding gigs. Their wholesome, melodic vibe was a huge hit in the Depression era. Georg von Trapp already had 7 children when Maria entered the family. Once she eventually connected with her husband, the couple had 3 more, making Maria the mother to 10 children. This large stock actually ended up being rather convenient, as it was easy to substitute members of the band when they had other commitments. The world truly could not get enough of this family. For a number of years, the Von Trapp family was the most successful group signed to Columbia. They permanently settled in the United States and then toured North America and Europe almost year-round for 20 years. They released at least 4 full records during their years as a group. Maria was not only a world-famous singer, she was also a best-selling author. In 1949, Maria released an autobiography of her family, titled The Story of the Trapp Family Singers. Apparently, it took a lot of coaxing from friends to get the pious woman to record her tale. Eventually, she did. It's a good thing, too. The autobiography served as the basis for all later adaptations of her life. After they arrived stateside, the Von Trapp story became a global sensation. Even prior to their Hollywood debut, Maria and her family were the subject of multiple film adaptations. In 1956, a comedy called The Trapp Family was released in Germany. 2 years later, another German film titled The Trapp Family in America was released. Both films were big hits. Maria Von Trapp signed away the rights to her story when the German film adaptations of her autobiography were being made. This was not one of her wisest moves. When Hollywood decided to make a movie about the Von Trapp family, the producers purchased the rights from the Germans. Despite being one of the most successful films in history, the Von Trapps made almost no money from The Sound of Music. According to her memoirs, Maria Von Trapp was a self-proclaimed troublemaker who spent her youth causing mischief and mayhem just for the fun of it. Maybe that's why, when she became a mother, she was rather strict with the children. You'd never know it from The Sound of Music, but by all accounts, she really kept a tight leash on all 10 children. Likewise, Georg von Trapp was not the disciplinarian that the adaptations of his life suggest. Instead, he had a reputation as a warm, kind, and gentle father. The family exploded on the live circuit. As a result, the Von Trapp name carried serious weight in the mid-20th century. Even better, their story was inspiring and exciting. Even before Hollywood decided to adapt the Trapp story for the big screen, The Sound of Music appeared as a Broadway play starring the incredible Mary Martin. Maria Von Trapp and her family are the real-life story behind The Sound of Music. This film was actually an adaptation of the Broadway play, which was itself an adaptation from Maria's autobiography. The classic really cemented the Trapp family's place in the history books. The iconic Julie Andrews was not always slated to be the star of The Sound of Music. In fact, prior to her selection, producers were considering other actresses for the role of Maria, the loving governess turned mother. When casting, filmmakers strongly considered Doris Day and Audrey Hepburn for the roles. Other possibilities included Grace Kelly and Shirley Jones. The Sound of Music was a major success in America, however. In Austria, it was a flop. The Austrian audiences did not like the stereotypical, Americanized version of their country that appeared on screen. Apparently, even the songs were not authentic Austrian songs. In contrast, the Von Trapp family itself was still widely popular in Austria. Maria liked the cinematography, but thought that the American film was entirely inaccurate. Not only did she take issues with the course of events and geographical errors, she took particular issue with her own depiction on screen, but not for the inaccuracies or any other reasons you'd expect. Her own life had been wild and untamed in her early years, she said, and the on-screen depiction of her was far too ladylike. The Von Trapp family might have had an exciting and fascinating life, however, that was apparently not enough. Producers dramatically changed the family for the film. For the sake of cinema, the oldest Von Trapp child, Rupert, was removed from the family. Filmmakers created the character Liesel to replace him. She had a well-known love story with a young German officer. However, in real life, this romance never happened. Although Maria Von Trapp did not entirely approve of the Hollywood adaptation of her life, that didn't stop her from participating in its making. If you watch closely, you can actually see the real Maria Von Trapp in the background of The Sound of Music. In one scene, Maria, her daughter, and another child walk through an archway behind Julie Andrews. Though Maria did not find more than a brief place in the iconic film about her life, she later taught the Hollywood superstar who played her to yodel. The fun lesson was even caught on camera and recorded for a television special. You really have to wonder if Andrews ever had the chance to try out her new talent afterward. When it was time for The Sound of Music to make its premiere, Maria Von Trapp patiently waited for an invitation, only to be the victim of an act of heartbreaking betrayal. When she called the producer, he told her that there were no seats left. Talk about disrespect. It seems that the famous Von Trapp temper did little to sway the producer, and the real-life Maria did not end up making it to the premiere. After marrying in, Maria really became the center of the household and the face of the Von Trapp family. Through all the years of fame, Maria Von Trapp never actually graced the stage as a singer, though he was a huge music fan and a big supporter of the group. When they achieved success in America, the Von Trapp family bought a huge property in Vermont and turned it into a family estate. They built a lodge where the family lived. Their close family bond became a source of great interest to the public. The Trapp family lodge is still run by the Trapp family and is now a huge tourist destination. After many years in the spotlight, the Trapp family matriarch stepped away from it all. At first, Maria Von Trapp simply moved back to Vermont to run the family lodge. Soon after, however, she turned her back on everything she'd known. She renounced her singing career and headed to the South Pacific to work as a missionary. When producers tried to contact her about a film adaptation, she ripped up the contracts. The Von Trapp family's close and profitable bond amazed the world. Their family structure was in such demand, in fact, that Maria ran a summer camp at the Von Trapp family lodge for a number of years, teaching people the family ways. Of course, it will come as no surprise that the camp also doubled as a music camp. Maria kept the family together. According to her children, Maria was the anchor and captain of the entire group. She kept the band together when it would otherwise have fallen apart. Maria Von Trapp may have left the convent life behind, but her faith never wavered. For the entirety of her life, Maria was fiercely religious. In fact, she believed that singing was a form of praying and that her musical career was an ode to God. The Von Trapp matriarch ensured that her household was pious and humble, no matter how successful they became. After World War II, the global financial crisis smashed Austria, leaving it poverty-stricken. Maria founded the Trapp Family Austrian Relief Fund and began to send food, clothing, and supplies to people in need in her home country. After making it in America and building a massive estate in rural Vermont, the Von Trapp family fell victim to a tragedy yet again. A fire broke out and quickly spread through the Von Trapp family home, decimating the lodge. Talk about bad luck. Fortunately, everyone made it out with no injuries, but that didn't mean everything was hunky-dory. Soon, another fire would cause even more trouble for the family. In 2008, a huge fire broke out in Universal Studios, which took over 12 hours to extinguish. The fire was disastrous. It destroyed 175,000 original audio recordings. Unfortunately, for the Von Trapp legacy, a huge collection of the family's recordings were among those lost. Thankfully, copies of most still exist. If all you knew about Maria Von Trapp was from the Julie Andrews character, this will likely come as a shock. Von Trapp actually had a famously bad temper. However, it seems that Hollywood decided that this wouldn't go over well with audiences. When her likeness appeared on screen, Von Trapp became a warm, loving, and angelic figure. The real Maria Von Trapp's life was far more dramatic and nuanced than the movie The Sound of Music portrayed. While the film focuses on her as a loving, governess-turned-mother, it omits much of the hardship and complexity she faced. Her decision to marry Maria Von Trapp, not out of romantic love, but out of dedication to his children, adds another layer of depth to her story. Even her family's escape from Austria, while less dramatic than in the film, was a courageous act in defiance of Hitler's regime. Maria's true story is undoubtedly one of survival, sacrifice, and unwavering faith, proving that reality can be far more compelling than fiction. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe.